Good evening. Welcome to our celebration tonight on behalf of Creative Life Spiritual Center and especially our senior minister and founder, the Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings. Tonight we're going to celebrate both the coming on earth of Yeshua ben Yusuf, otherwise known as Jesus of Nazareth, and also the winter solstice, where the year turns from dark to light. I invite you now to relax. Just focus on your breath. And take in a deep breath. And then just allow that breath to slowly come out. And I invite you also to turn away from whatever dark events are going on in the world. And I claim for each and every one of you and everyone here joy and comfort. I claim that the truth of each one of us is joy. It is comfort. And I claim too love and peace in each of your lives. I release this into divine mind because divine mind always hears, always responds. And this is the truth, and I release it now. And so it is. And I invite you now to relax and listen and watch to the rest of our program.
Well, I get to talk about my favorite thing ever, Santa. I'm actually going to talk about the Santa principle. And if you're science of mind, you know what a principle is, right? I looked it up. Principle is source of a cause for an effect. So then what is the Santa principle? Okay. So I want to let you know that I was inspired to talk about the Santa principle by another minister, Reverend David Bruner from California. I don't know if y'all follow him on Facebook, but you should. Every day he asks a random question. And one day he asked the question of, when did you find out about Santa? Now I'm going to leave the rest of the question off just in case there's anybody under a certain age watching it. And I thought about it and I was like, it took me a couple of days to answer that one. That's the beauty of these questions because people are constantly answering them so they'll pop back up into your news feed. And finally I was sitting there going, wait a minute. Santa is an idea. Santa is a principle. So Santa, okay, now here's where somebody is going to have to watch me because I can talk about the mythology of Santa for like days. There are multiple versions of Santa. There are multiple people who have been Santa, up to and including Odin. Yeah, Odin, the one-eyed Norse god. And there's also St. Nicholas and Kris Kringle, and then there have been various elves. There are lots of different Santas. But Santa's also an idea. Santa's an idea that lives in the heart. And it lives in every heart, which is what makes Santa a principle. So what's the effect of Santa? Well, let's talk about what Santa is. Well, first off, Santa's a symbol of abundance. I mean, we've all seen that bag of holding, right? He comes with this not that big bag, and yet manages to reach in the bag and pull out exactly the right gift for exactly the right person. Notice that I didn't say child, person. Every time, it's definitely magic. Santa also gives with no thought of return. Okay, but what about the Christmas cookies? I looked it up, and that goes back to Odin. When Odin was on his wild hunts, then people would leave out gifts of hay and carrots and drinks to entice Odin to stop and rest there, because if Odin stopped and rested there, he would maybe leave a gift, but it wasn't a guarantee. So when we get to now, we leave out the milk and cookies, but we do it because we want Santa to keep going. So we're energizing the Santa, but it's not required. He'll still stop. And Santa gives for the joy of giving, okay? Nobody gets left out. Yeah, I know, I've heard the song Naughty and Nice. And he's got a list and he's checking it twice. But even when you've been naughty, you still get a gift, right? You get coal. So think about it. Now, do I want coal? No. But if I had a coal-burning fireplace and it was cold, would I want coal? Yes. So sometimes Santa gives gifts that don't make sense. And I'm going to tell you, if anybody has ever read Terry Pratchett, I love Terry Pratchett. If you've not read The Hogfather, please do. It is about this whole Christmas cyclical solstice, will the sun come up tomorrow? But in one of those where the character, the anthropomorphic character of Death, is trying to keep the belief in the Hogfather, read Santa, he shows up at the store and plays Santa. And he pulls a sword out of his bag and gives it to a small child. And the mother's like, "You can't do that, it's dangerous." At which point Santa said, "That's the point of the sword. If they don't learn it now, when are they going to learn it?" So Santa gives for the joy of giving, and he gives practical gifts, ridiculous gifts, fun gifts, expensive gifts, inexpensive gifts. He meets a need in a moment. And there's something about the magic of children's joy on Christmas Day. I mean, I won't tell you how long ago it was that I would remember. Like, I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'd look at the clock and I'd be like, "Can I go now? Can I go now? Can I go now?" No, I really need to wait. I need to let Mom and Dad sleep for 2 more hours? Maybe. And there were a few where, we went down with the flashlights very quietly and got all excited and then went back to bed. So the magic of children's joy. And it's not just about the gifts. It's about the whole thing behind me. This, when you transform your environment into something magical, you bring trees from the outside in, you put lights everywhere, your house smells amazing because you're cooking and you're baking and you're doing all of that. So here's the really cool thing. We're all on Santa's team. Because remember when I said that Santa gives with no thought of return or acknowledgement? So when you do those little things every day, like the example that I read on Facebook was that somebody called 911. The person who 911 came for will never know who called 911. That's Santa magic. Or when you show up as a small child and talk to your grandmother and your grandmother goes, "No, Santa's real, let me show you Santa." And you go and you buy a coat. And your grandma gave you $10 and you find out later that the coat was $20. But the shopkeeper who sold you the coat, when she found out who the coat was for, because it was a friend in your class who didn't have a coat, charged you what you had. That's the magic of Santa. And that's grandma magic and giving magic and generosity. So, everybody's on Santa's team. So, but we don't have to restrict it just to Santa, just to this time of year. We can do that all year round. But I wanted to leave you with the principle of Santa. And please groan when you hear this. The principle of Santa is elf. The E stands for empathy. Caring because you see the situation. The L, well, that's obvious. That's for love. Giving to the needs, not just the wants. And the F is for philanthropy. It starts with an F, right? Because philanthropists are generally anonymous. And Santa hides behind every face that you see. So we are all Santa. And source and spirit is Santa. So you don't just have to have a white beard and a big bowl belly full of jelly. Ooh, that didn't come out right. When you do it in the spirit of elf, you get to be Santa too. So I invite you on this Christmas Eve to invite the elf of the Santa principle into your life.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through our homes. This year's not like others. There's not that same holiday tone. Houses that are typically busting at the seams are a lot less crowded and maybe even a little lonely. Because a global pandemic spread heartache and fear, family gatherings look different this year. Instead of dessert smells looming, music and laughter booming, more and more of us have to settle for Zooming. The COVID numbers are on the rise, but news of vaccines keep hope alive. Our pain this year is not in vain. We know if we hold on, mask up, and keep our distance, we'll be in each other's arms once again. So open your gifts and eat your meals. Play with the kiddos if you got them. It's a really big deal. Remember the loved ones that are no longer with us. And give yourself permission to care a little less about all the fuss and all the hype. The bows don't have to be so straight. It's okay if everything is not just right. Because if we've learned one thing from the gift of 2020, it's that health and happiness are precious, and each good blessing brings joy aplenty. So stuff the stockings to the brim, light up the tree that's trimmed, sing the carols, watch the festive shows, and enjoy this season with a sweet grin. And try to remember in between your celebrations to say a prayer for the brave men and women battling corona across the nations. Each and every one of them are reminders to do our part. Wash, sanitize, and stay 6 feet apart. If we keep doing these few simple things a bit longer, we can make it through this pandemic wiser and stronger. One more thing I ask of you to make tomorrow ideal. Remember, it's okay to feel all the feels. Our emotions ground us as they lift us up to reveal the best in us, even the ones that don't necessarily feel the best in us. Because it is in us, through us, and with us that all of our feelings allow us to truly be real. So even though it's not the same, fondly reflect on all your good unashamed. Gently allow the not so hot stuff time too, without any guilt or blame, releasing the blue. So when you start your day tomorrow, feed up with a warm cup of your favorite coffee or tea. I hope you fondly remember this Christmas tale as a reminder and a blessing that this is just a moment and it will pass. We'll make it through this together. We just have to stay steadfast. And once you get up and going with the task of celebrating your day, I hope you welcome it like Santa, the elves, and the reindeers, and have a very Merry Christmas filled with lots of holiday cheer.
Merry Christmas. Am I on? I don't think so. Just a minute. Did I turn myself off? You're on. I'm on. Can you hear me all right? No. All right. Pardon me a moment. It is inevitable that in a carefully choreographed and rehearsed production such as we have here, that I, and I alone, would be the one to blow the whole program. Christmas is ruined because of me. You've heard the expression Jiminy Christmas? This is the Jiminiest of Christmases, isn't it? That we're having this time around. Christmas is complicated. All these different pieces come together. I was sitting there, I rewrote my talk 12 times while I was listening to Lisa. Bringing in what I recall you ending with was the joyous expectation of a rotund, white-bearded man. And I realized that was my cue. So here we are. I want to acknowledge everybody who's made this service tonight happen before I get into what I have to say about it. And that would be our two excellent staff ministers, Reverend David Dewhurst, Reverend Lisa Ryan, our board president and practitioner, Danielle Mercadel, for her reading, our musicians, Brian Schwanitz, Mary Radspinner at the harp, Kenzie and Melody Berryman, who are mother and daughter, if you did not know that, when they sang the song Winter. And they have been a mainstay of this service these many years, as has our music director and pianist, Jeffrey Oshman. And I want to give a shout out to one person who's not here, and I know an awful lot of people aren't here, like a lot of people are not here in the room tonight for this, who normally would have been. But I want to acknowledge Peter Trout, musician, excellent Peter, because Peter has been with us for like 25 straight Christmases, but this is not a straight Christmas, so he will be back, I'm sure, as soon as he possibly can. Here's what I want to tell you. Here's what I want to leave you with. I want to bring you tidings of comfort and even joy. I want to bring you some tidings of comfort and even joy. This is a Christmas unlike any other. It's a Christmas we'll never forget. Some of them blend together. Do you remember the difference between the Christmas of 1978 and 1979, if you were around then on the planet? Probably not. One seemed pretty much like another. Dylan Thomas says that in his Child's Christmas in Wales. One Christmas seemed pretty much like another. In Wales it snowed, and the family got together, and the uncles drank and sang at the piano, and so on and so forth. So one Christmas seems pretty much like another, but not this one. Not this one. This one will remain in memory long after, and yet the kernel of the thing, the essence of the thing, the essence of the Christmas moment is unaffected, is unaffected. You know, we've all suffered a lot this year. There's something that has not suffered. And because it's not suffered, it can hold us in our suffering. If it had suffered along with us, it wouldn't be much help. We'd be consoling it, right? Have you ever had a friend like that, a friendship like that, a conversation like that, where you start pouring out your sorrow and it touches something in your friend so deeply that the conversation kind of pivots and it becomes about their suffering and so on? All right. Well, that's a perfectly beautiful and wonderful thing. It means in that moment they needed your support maybe more than you needed theirs, and that's just fine. But if this happened all the time, you'd be like, I got to find somebody who's strong that I can lean on, that I can take my story to, and not have them fall apart under the weight of it. Well, imagine that there's a power, because there is, that loves you so much, When you going to love you as much as I do, says his power. Like that song said. When you're going to love yourself as much as I love you. There's a power that loves you so much that you can bring all your pain to it. You can bring all your questions to it. You can bring everything you have to it, and it will sustain you, and it will be unmoved to the heart, because there's a place of issuance from this one where nothing has ever been wrong. Where it's never, now this may be pushing it a little, the envelope here, but it's never not been Christmas. There's a place where it's never not been your birthday. There's a place where it's never not been a time of great celebration of who you are. That's the place where we go, and at this time of year, especially for those of the Christian tradition, but really for across the culture, because it sings out of every doorway. It feels like it comes closer to us, or in the words of an old Christmas carol, angels bending near the earth to touch their harps of gold. As I look at Mary here, it's like the angels are out there, but now they're close by. Now they're close by, and we feel them, and we hear them. We hear them in sleigh bells. We hear them when I grew up in an apartment, and so we didn't have like a chimney where, Santa could come down. So as a little kid, when, you take things very literally, don't you? And he's got to come down a chimney into the hearth. We don't have one. What's going to happen? We had steam pipes. And in the winter, when it's cold, as it was, the steam pipes rattle. And they almost kind of sing, because they come up from the basement. We were on the 7th floor, and and I sort of imagined, and I can still hear this in my mind's ear. That's where you hear stuff. You see stuff in your mind's eye. Anyway, I can still sort of remember the sound that these steam pipes made, and they only made it in the run-up to Christmas. And then the rest of the time, they sounded like steam pipes, but coming up to Christmas, they sounded like sleigh bells, And I was like, well, I don't know how this is going to work, but maybe he's going to miniaturize himself. What's that movie, Fantastic Voyage? It came out back then, and stuff. And it was like, so maybe little bitty Santa Claus, who knows? But I felt the presence of something. I felt the presence of a power. I felt the presence of a magic. This is the magic of the season. Lisa was speaking about the magic of Santa. Okay. Here's the thing about that. The magic of Santa is the magic of you, that you associate with Santa. The grace of God in your life is the grace of your life that you associate with God. You see, we make these associations, and then we kind of offload them, and we think that we either turn the object into the subject or the subject into the object. I'm not sure exactly which. But it becomes not about us. It becomes about something else outside of us. And that's what brings me to the Christ. The Christ in this teaching. You heard David in his excellent opening mention the name Yeshua ben Yosef, which would have been the name of Jesus, the man that we know, who, in our understanding in this teaching, inhabited the Christ, came to the Christ principle, came to the Christ awareness. How exactly, we're not sure. Why him exactly, we're not sure. But we know that he did because of what he was able to accomplish with it, and we know that he was fearless about it. And so he proclaimed healing to all he encountered. And then when he left this world, the proclaiming went on, and does to this day. And where many take it is into the realm of personality, which is perfectly understandable as humans. But there's a principle back of the personality that's accessible to everyone, and that is the Christ. Now, the principle, being a principle, isn't born exactly. It pre-exists form. It's always been, it'll always be. So what is it that's getting born right now? Our awareness of it. What is it that's heading across the wasteland now with gifts to adore it? Our sense of self, our ego, our opinions, our leadership abilities, All of this head stuff is seeking to go adore a child, an infant, who has nothing to say, who exists in silence and in wonder, and like any infant, is a learning machine, right? This is what infants do. They survey the landscape with big old eyes, and they take it all in. And this wise, clever, worldly, jaded part of us that makes its way across the desert to find that, we want some of that. Why on earth? How can we monetize that? Right? How can we turn that into temporal power? Well, we can't. We want to offload that burden of leadership and grown-upness and just be in wonder and in awe. That's why the imagery of the child at this time of year is so overwhelming. It's so profound. I want to read you something Ernest Holmes wrote. He says, the child who is in us, before we learn to be so sophisticated and fight and deny it and quarrel with everybody and be sore at everything, is not dead. He is not asleep. We have just crowded in so much experience, so much negation, that not he, but we have forgot that celestial palace from whence we came. Each of us should seek that beam of light, it is there, and follow it to the greater light. Light is in everything. Light surrounds everything. Light lights our path. And we must awaken ourselves, rediscover that lost paradise, that child who was not afraid of the universe in which he lived, that child who did not deny himself or his God, that child who had not listened to the dull, monotonous tune of condemnation. This is the light that lightest everyone's path. And as you believe that you live with all your heart, believe that you are that light. These are my tidings of comfort and joy to you, to know that you are in fact that light. You've always been, you'll always be. And right now, the world could use some more light. It could use some more metaphorical light. It could use some light cast on the subject of the business at hand, of daily living, of what we're going to do next, to how we're going to get the vaccine out to everybody, and how that's going to be handled, how the economy is going to come back, and people are going to go back to work, and businesses are going to be able to open and reopen, and people who've invested their life savings in a restaurant or something are going to be able to thrive as they had dreamed that they would. And hey, what about the schools, when they reopen after the holidays? And what are the kids going to do? And what are the teachers and the subs going to do? And how is all of this going to work? And how are we going to make this world work? And what about tension and conflict and upset? Needs some light. Who has it? You do. I do. And here's the really cool part of all that. If you didn't have the light, if you weren't responsible for your part of the light, you wouldn't be hearing that from me or anybody else right now. See? If that were a conversation, it'd be going on someplace else. You wouldn't be tuned into that channel at all. But now that you've heard it, and this isn't the first time from this stage, by a long shot, but maybe this is the first time for you to tune into this stage or anything like it. Now that you've heard it, you know what else? It's not going to leave you alone. Everywhere you go. It'll be like, I don't know, in A Christmas Carol, you remember? He saw the face of Jacob Marley, who Scrooge did, his partner, on the door knocker. Everywhere he looked, it's like, what was going on there? It was a psychological event. It was a need for a healing that he was having, and so the representation of that showed up everywhere, kind of terrifyingly, to get his attention. This is even before you get to the three ghosts. Well, the idea of your power won't leave you alone. It will show up everywhere. And you try to hide from it, you try to look away, and good luck with that, because it's going to keep turning up. And it's a challenge, but it's a gift. Quiet little gift comes into the heart that tells you that you have what it takes to be who you are, to be fully who you are in the world, to be an agent of healing in the world, because this is really what the world needs. And this is what Holmes is saying in this: the child who, before we learned to be so sophisticated and fight and deny it and so on, that child is still in us. Before we sought out many inventions, that child is still there. So when they say Christmas is for children, it is. You're the child. You're the child, as well as the grown-up. What the grown-up brings to the table, of course, are strategies and so on for the implementation of the vision of the child, but it's the vision of the child that drives the procedure. The vision always manages the details. In any successful endeavor, always the vision manages the details. And so I wish for you and know for you and for your loved ones a vision of this time as the beginning of something profound and wonderful and sweet and beautiful that we will be in together. And as is my custom, I'm going to close this with a treatment. We will enjoy another one here shortly from Reverend David. But I invite you to know with me there is one life. That life is God. That life is all the life there is. And that God had a son. And that God had a daughter. And that God had all of us from within itself. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us here, each of us. Now we honor at this time the man that we know as Jesus, possessor of, inhabiter of the Christ principle. And in no way do we diminish his teaching, his legacy, by affirming what he himself said, that the kingdom of heaven is within us. It's within all beings. And when he was asked, seriously asked, how can I be more like you? How can I do the things that you do? Be this agent of healing, be this worker of magic in the world. How can I do this? How can we do this as your disciples, as your world? He answered for the ages in 3 words: love one another. Love one another. Now, I don't know how to turn water into wine, but I've not taken a serious shot at it. I'm not sure I could walk across the surface of a sea. And good common sense tells me don't even try. And I've prayed over the sick and even over the departed. And there have been healings from time to time, but never in my direct experience as a person has expired from this life, stood up and come out of the crypt behind my word. So there's a lot to this master teacher, Jesus, that I don't know how to do, that I can't understand, but I can do this. I can love one another. I know how to do that. And all it takes is getting myself out of the way. Expectations, opinions, attitudes, desires, all the rest of it shoveled aside, so that a clear place is created within. Like that stable with its manger, a place is set aside for pure unconditional love. And it pours forth from me into the world on this Christmas Eve and in all the days to come. For this knowing and its manifestation in form, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
And so we come to giving time. I've actually changed what I was going to say a whole bunch of times because Reverend Lisa spoke, then Danielle spoke, and then Reverend Jesse spoke, and each time they spoke, I got a different idea. When I was a kid, Christmas was all about receiving gifts. And then when I became an adult, I realized that it wasn't just about receiving, it was also about giving. But I also learned something else, and that was that when you give, you receive, because the adults who gave to us kids were receiving the joy back that we felt when we saw our gifts. And that's just the way it is in life. So my job today is to just tell you that the center has kept going for 9 months without any real live services. We've had a service each Sunday, but there's been no audience participation. We've had no collections inside. Many of you have been very generous. You've given online. At this special time of the year, I'm asking you, for those who can, to please dig down and give a little bit more generously. Because this center gives so much. It's given so much to me, and I'm sure it's given so much to so many of you. So my plea with you today is to please be as generous as you can to help this center keep giving what it does to the world. And you can see some of the things behind. If you want to move out of the way, just a second. I don't know if you can see this on the camera. It gives joy, hope, peace, it inspires, and it helps us believe. So to help us continue doing these things and to give good things to the world, please just dig down and be as generous as you can. And let's all say together, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. And now let's do what we always do best. We are a praying organization. So let's just do that. Let's pray now. And I ask you to take these words as your own. And I know that there is just one source of life in this whole universe. And that source of life is present in every single thing, from a stone to a planet, to a lizard, to a human being. It's present in each one now. It's present in me. And I can claim, as Jesus did, that he called the Father within has got the power to do anything. And because we are always present in divine mind, we can never escape that. We're always present in divine mind. I know that when I express my belief, as I do now, in this power, that this power produces what I claim. And what I claim for our world right now is healing. And I also claim that this healing is in everything. It's in our minds, it's in the medicine, it's in the vaccines. So I can truly claim that this pandemic is coming to an end because God is in everything. And I truly claim, as this happens, that each person in this world begins to realize that love is the answer. And guess what? When love is the answer, that's all that matters. That peace comes about on the earth. So I claim now, for this planet and for each and every single person in it, I claim peace, I claim healing, I claim health. And I release this word with gratitude, with joy, and with love into divine mind. And I claim that it is done, and it is so, and so it is.
And so it
And
is.
so it is. There was a brief moment of, social distancing. Let me back up. So, all right. It would not be Christmas Eve without a candle lighting service. So we are inviting you to take your candle at home and light it with us as we sing Silent Night, to remember that The ancients lit bonfires to remind the sun to come up. We don't need to do that anymore, but we still do light these fires to remind ourselves of the light within, to remind ourselves to ignite that light within and to shine it forth so that the light lights the path for everyone. So please take your candle in hand, light it, and light it with the hope that it's all going to be okay.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Round yon virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, everything comes out right when we see all people as one. What was difficult now becomes fun. Speak